The irony of having this confrontation on Thanksgiving wasn't lost on me. I'm Sarah Mitchell, 34, and until 6 months ago, I thought I understood what family meant. I was wrong. I'd spent the morning debating whether to even attend dinner. My apartment felt safer, quieter, free from the tension that had been building since Dad's retirement fund vanished. But I knew I had to go, not for my brother Michael, who'd been spreading lies about me for months, but for Dad. At 65, he didn't deserve to lose everything he'd worked for. The drive to my parents' suburban home felt longer than usual. Each passing mile brought back memories of happier Thanksgivings, before Mom passed, before Michael changed, before everything fell apart. I parked behind Dad's old Camry, noticing how it desperately needed repairs he could no longer afford. Sarah. Dad's face lit up as he opened the door, pulling me into a tight hug. He'd lost weight, his favorite sweater hanging loose on his frame. The stress was eating away at him, literally. "Happy Thanksgiving, Dad," I managed, forcing a smile. Over his shoulder, I saw Michael in the living room, watching us with cold eyes. My brother had changed since taking over as CEO of our family's construction company 3 months ago. The warm, caring sibling I'd grown up with had been replaced by someone I barely recognized. "You've got some nerve showing up here," Michael said, not bothering to hide his hostility. His wife, Jessica, sat on the couch, pretending to be absorbed in her phone. "It's Thanksgiving, Michael. I'm here for Dad." I kept my voice steady, though my hands were shaking. In my purse, the manila envelope felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. Dad's small house, once filled with Mom's laughter and family photos, now felt suffocating. The dining room table was set for 4, Mom's empty chair a glaring reminder of everything we'd lost in the past year. "Dinner's ready," Dad announced, trying to break the tension. He'd insisted on cooking, though I knew his arthritis made it painful. The turkey looked a bit dry, the stuffing slightly burned, but none of that mattered. What mattered was the stack of foreclosure notices I'd seen in his kitchen, hidden under a pile of junk mail. We sat down, an awkward silence falling over the table. Dad cleared his throat. "Should we say grace?" Before anyone could respond, Michael jumped in. "Actually, we need to discuss something first." He pulled out his phone, sliding it across the table to me. On the screen was a bank transfer notification. $100,000 from the company account to my personal account, dated 3 months ago. "Care to explain this, Sarah?" His voice dripped with accusation. Dad looked between us, confusion clouding his features. "What's going on?" "I'll tell you what's going on," Michael said, his voice rising. "Your perfect daughter stole $100,000 from the company, the same company that's supposed to be paying for your retirement." "That's not true," I said quietly, my heart pounding. "And you know it." "Do I?" Michael stood up, looming over the table. "The transfer record is right there. You took the money right before I became CEO. Was it guilt that kept you away these past months, or just shame?" Jessica finally looked up from her phone, a slight smirk playing on her lips. She'd never liked me, especially after I'd questioned her lavish spending of company money on business lunches that somehow always involved shopping sprees. "Sarah?" Dad's voice was small, uncertain. "Please tell me this isn't true." "Pay bathe di money by an IDNI Michael shouted, making the china rattle, or DADGTS evicted to an ORO. The threat hung in the air like smoke, choking us all. Dad's face had gone pale, his hands trembling as he set down his fork. This was the moment I'd been preparing for, gathering evidence, following paper trails, working with forensic accountants to uncover the truth. I reached into my purse and pulled out the manila envelope. "Before you threaten Dad's home," I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart, "let's look at your offshore account statements." The color drained from Michael's face as I spread the papers across the table, covering the untouched Thanksgiving dinner. Bank statements from the Cayman Islands, wire transfers, property purchases in Jessica's maiden name, and most damning of all, documents showing systematic withdrawals from Dad's retirement fund, laundered through shell companies Michael had created. "What? What is all this?" Dad picked up one of the statements, his hands shaking. "The truth?" I said softly. "Michael's been stealing from the company for years. Small amounts at first, then larger ones after Mom died. When he found out he was getting the CEO position, he tried to frame me by creating a fake transfer to my account. But he got sloppy. These are lies. Michael sputtered, but his face had gone ashen. Jessica was already reaching for her car keys. The $100,000 transfer, check the address it came from. It traces back to your home computer, Michael. The same computer you used to set up the offshore accounts. I pulled out another document, and here's the real reason you're so desperate to blame me. The FBI is investigating the company's finances. They've already frozen several of your accounts. Dad was reading through the papers, his expression shifting from confusion to horror to anger. 25 years of retirement savings, gone. The house he'd worked so hard to pay off, now in danger because Michael had taken out loans against it using forged signatures. How could you? Dad's voice cracked as he looked at Michael. Your own father. Michael's composure finally broke. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. The investments were supposed to pay off. I was going to put it all back before anyone noticed. Then the market crashed, and you decided to frame your sister instead of facing the consequences, Dad finished, his voice heavy with disappointment. I reached into the envelope one last time, pulling out a final document. There's something else you should see, Dad. When I uncovered what Michael was doing, I didn't just gather evidence, I took steps to protect what's left. The paper was a deed transfer showing Dad's house had been moved into a protected trust. Michael can't touch it now, I explained, and I've been working with the company's board of directors. They're meeting tomorrow to discuss removing Michael as CEO. Jessica stood up abruptly. We're leaving. Michael, call your lawyer. But Michael just sat there, staring at the evidence of his crimes spread across our Thanksgiving table. The brother I'd grown up with, who'd taught me to ride a bike, who'd helped me move into my first apartment, was gone. In his place sat a stranger consumed by greed. Dad pushed back from the table, his dinner untouched. I think I need some air. He walked out to the back porch, where Mom's wind chimes still hung, dancing in the November breeze. I followed him, leaving Michael alone with his guilt and Jessica's angry whispers. Outside, the air was crisp, carrying the scent of fallen leaves and wood smoke from the neighbors' chimneys. I'm sorry, Dad, I said softly. I wanted to tell you sooner, but I needed to make sure I had everything documented first. He nodded, staring out at Mom's garden, now overgrown with weeds. Your mother would be proud of you, he finally said. She always said you had her sense of justice. Inside, we heard the front door slam as Michael and Jessica left. Their car engine revved, tires squealing as they sped away. But we stayed on the porch, watching the sun set on what had turned out to be a very different kind of Thanksgiving. What happens now? Dad asked. Now, I said, taking his hand, we rebuild. Together. And maybe next year, we'll actually get to eat the turkey. He managed a small laugh, and for the first time in months, I saw a glimmer of hope in his eyes. The truth had finally come out, and though it hurt, it was also setting us free. As we stood there in the gathering dusk, I thought about family, not the fairy tale version I believed in as a child, but the real, messy, complicated thing it actually was. Sometimes the hardest part of loving your family is being strong enough to hold them accountable. And sometimes that's exactly what they need. The wind chimes tinkled softly, and I could almost hear Mom's voice in their melody, telling me I'd done the right thing. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges, legal meetings, company reorganization, helping Dad process this betrayal. But for now, we have this moment of quiet understanding, standing together on the porch where we'd shared so many family memories. It wasn't the Thanksgiving either of us had planned, but maybe it was the one we needed. The days following that explosive Thanksgiving dinner felt like walking through a minefield. Every phone call could be another threat, every email another attempt at manipulation. Michael had gone from threatening to pleading, leaving voicemails that ranged from angry accusations to tearful apologies. I sat in my office at Mitchell Construction, where I worked as the chief financial officer, a position that had allowed me to discover Michael's fraud in the first place. The board meeting was scheduled for 9 a.m., and my stomach was in knots. Through the glass walls, I could see the conference room filling up with board members, their faces grim. My phone buzzed, a text from Jessica. You've ruined everything. Hope you're happy. I deleted it without responding. Ms. Mitchell. My assistant poked her head in. They're ready for you. I gathered my files and straightened my blazer. The walk to the conference room felt like walking to an execution, even though I knew I was doing the right thing. The board members looked up as I entered, 10 people who had trusted Michael to lead our family company, people who had known me since I was a little girl running through these halls while Mom worked late. Thank you for coming on such short notice, I began, my voice steadier than I felt. As outlined in the documents I sent yesterday, I've uncovered significant financial irregularities under Michael Mitchell's leadership. For the next hour, I presented the evidence, spreadsheets, bank statements, forged documents. With each revelation, the board members' expressions grew darker. Mr. Henderson, who had been friends with my parents for 30 years, looked like he had aged a decade in one morning. "And where is Michael now?" Mrs. Rodriguez, our newest board member, asked. "He was invited to this meeting but chose not to attend," I replied, though I knew why. Michael was probably meeting with his lawyers, trying to find a way out of this mess. The vote was unanimous. Michael was removed as CEO, effective immediately. They appointed an interim leader, not me, which was fine. I had made it clear I didn't want the position. This wasn't about power, it was about justice. As I packed up my presentation, Mr. Henderson approached. "Your mother would be proud," he said quietly. "She always said you had her backbone." That's when my phone rang, Dad's number. "Excuse me," I said, stepping into the hallway. "Dad, is everything okay?" His voice was shaky. "Michael's here. At the house. He's not himself, Sarah." My heart stopped. "I'm on my way. Call the police if—" "No police," he interrupted. "He's still my son. Just hurry." I broke every speed limit getting to Dad's house. Michael's Mercedes was parked crookily in the driveway, one wheel on Mom's flower bed. Through the living room window, I could see them arguing, Michael gesturing wildly, Dad sitting in his recliner, looking smaller than I'd ever seen him. The front door was unlocked. As I entered, I heard Michael's voice, thick with emotion. "Everything I did was for this family. The company was failing, Dad. The contracts were drying up. I had to do something. By stealing my retirement, by forging my signature." Dad's voice was tired. "That's not protecting the family, Michael. That's destroying it." Michael spun around when he heard me enter. His expensive suit was rumpled, his eyes red. "Well, look who's here. The perfect daughter, come to gloat." "I'm not here to gloat," I said, moving to stand between him and Dad. "I'm here to make sure you don't make things worse for yourself." "Worse?" He laughed, a harsh sound. "How could things get worse? The board just fired me. Jessica's talking about divorce. My own sister betrayed me. You betrayed yourself," I cut in. "And Dad and the company and everyone who trusted you. The board didn't fire you because of me. They fired you because of what you did." He collapsed onto the couch, head in his hands. "I was going to fix it. The crypto investments were supposed to pay off. Another month, maybe 2. "Stop lying," I said firmly. "I saw the transfers, Michael. The gambling sites, the luxury purchases. This wasn't about saving the company. This was about your greed." Dad stood up slowly, using his cane for support. "Michael, I think you should leave. We all need time to process this." "Process this?" Michael's voice rose again. "Process what? That my sister's destroyed our family? That she's turned you against me?" "The only person who destroyed anything is you," I replied, keeping my voice level. "The FBI is already investigating. If you have any sense left, you'll go straight to your lawyer and start cooperating." He stood up so quickly that Dad flinched. For a moment, I thought he might actually try to hit me. Instead, he reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out an envelope, tossing it onto the coffee table. "What's that?" Dad asked. "Open it," Michael said, a strange smile playing on his lips. With trembling hands, Dad opened the envelope. Inside was a single photograph, old and creased. Mom, sitting in her office at Mitchell Construction, looking at something on her computer with a worried expression. "Found that when I was cleaning out the old files," Michael said. "Taken 2 weeks before she died. Want to know what she was looking at, Sarah? Want to know what really killed her?" My blood ran cold. "Don't." She was looking at proof that her perfect daughter had been cooking the books for years. Small amounts, clever manipulations. She was trying to decide whether to turn you in. Dad's hands were shaking so badly he dropped the photo. "That's not true. Your mother died of a heart attack." Wrought on by stress, Michael pressed. Stress caused by discovering her daughter was a thief. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. Not because there was any truth to his accusations, there wasn't, but because he would stoop this low, would use Mom's death as a weapon. That's enough, I said, my voice hard. Mom died because of a congenital heart condition she never knew she had. The autopsy confirmed it. But you know that, don't you? Just like you know those books you claim I cooked were audited 3 times after her death. Clean, every time. Michael's smile faltered. What you don't know, I continued, is that Mom left me a letter. Found it in her desk after the funeral. Want to know what it said? He said nothing, but his face had gone pale again. She knew, Michael. She knew you were skimming from the company accounts. Small amounts back then, but she knew. She was gathering evidence, planning to confront you. That's what she was looking at in that photo. Proof of your theft, not mine. You're lying, he whispered, but there was no conviction in his voice. I pulled out my phone, opened my photos, and held it up. There was Mom's letter in her familiar handwriting. I'd photographed it the day I found it, knowing someday I might need it. Dad read it silently, tears rolling down his cheeks. Mom's words laid it all out. Her discovery of Michael's early thefts, her struggle over what to do, her fear that confronting him would tear the family apart. She was protecting you, I said quietly. Even then, she was trying to protect you. And this is how you repay her? By using her death to try to frame me? Michael staggered back as if I'd struck him. Without another word, he turned and fled the house. Through the window, we watched him drive away, this time without squealing tires. He looked defeated. Dad sank back into his recliner, the letter still clutched in his hands. Why didn't you tell me about this sooner? I sat on the arm of his chair like I used to do when I was little. Because Mom asked me not to, in the letter. She wanted me to use it only if necessary, only if Michael went too far. She still hoped he'd change, right up until the end. We sat in silence for a while, both lost in memories of Mom. Finally, Dad spoke again, his voice rough with emotion. What happens now? Now we let the legal system do its work, I said. Michael will probably face charges. The company will recover. We're stronger than his mistakes. And you? I squeezed his shoulder. You're going to be okay, I promise. He covered my hand with his. When did you become so strong? I learned from the best, I smiled. Both you and Mom. As the afternoon light faded into evening, we ordered pizza, a post-Thanksgiving tradition Mom had started years ago. Sitting in the living room, sharing quiet conversation and memories, I felt something shift. The truth about Michael hurt, but it was a clean hurt, like setting a broken bone. Now finally healing could begin. My phone buzzed with a text from Mr. Henderson. Emergency board meeting tomorrow. 8 a.m. We need to discuss the company's future. I showed it to Dad, who nodded. Go. Lead. It's what your mother would have wanted. Looking at Mom's photo on the mantel, her smile bright and knowing, I knew he was right. This wasn't the end of our story, it was just the beginning of a new chapter. The emergency board meeting the next morning felt different from any I'd attended before. The tension that had filled these halls under Michael's leadership was gone, replaced by something else. Determination, maybe, or hope. I arrived early, coffee in hand, and found Mr. Henderson already waiting in the conference room. Sarah, he gestured for me to join him. There's something you should know before the others arrive. My stomach tightened. What is it? Michael's left the country. He slid a tablet across the table. On the screen was a flight manifest from the night before, a private jet to the Cayman Islands. Michael's name was on the passenger list. I sank into a chair, not entirely surprised, but still disappointed. Running away. Just like always, he takes the coward's way out. The FBI has been notified, Henderson continued. But that's not why I called this meeting. The board has been talking, and we've made a decision. Before he could continue, the other board members began filing in. Mrs. Rodriguez gave me a sympathetic smile as she took her seat. Within minutes, the room was full, and I noticed something odd. They left the CEO's chair empty. Henderson cleared his throat. Given recent events, we find ourselves at a crossroads. Mitchell Construction has been a family company for 3 generations. Your grandfather built it, your parents grew it, and despite your brother's actions, its foundation remains strong. My hands tightened around my coffee cup. I knew where this was going. We've voted unanimously, Mrs. Rodriguez said. We want you as CEO, Sarah. Even expecting it, the words hit me like a physical force. I appreciate the offer, but Before you decline again, Henderson interrupted. Look at these. He handed out folders. Inside were financial projections, employee surveys, and client testimonials, all collected during my time as CFO. The company hasn't just survived under your financial oversight, Rodriguez explained. It's thrived. You implemented systems that uncovered your brother's fraud. You maintained client relationships that could have been destroyed by this scandal. Most importantly, you showed integrity when it would have been easier to look the other way. I opened my mouth to protest, but Henderson held up his hand. Take 24 hours. That's all we ask. Talk to your father. Think about what your mother would have wanted. The rest of the meeting passed in a blur. Reports, action items, updates. Michael's departure had left dozens of projects in limbo, clients needing reassurance, employees wondering about their futures. By the time I left the office that evening, my head was spinning. I drove to Dad's house and found him in the garage, sorting through old boxes. Dad, what are you doing? He held up a dusty photo album. Found these while cleaning. Come look. We sat on the garage floor, surrounded by cardboard boxes and memories. The album was from the company's early days, Grandpa breaking ground on their first major project, Mom in a hard hat supervising a site, Michael and me as kids playing in piles of sand at various job sites. Your mother took most of these, Dad said softly, pointing to a particularly good shot of a sunset over one of our completed buildings. She had an eye for seeing the beauty in unfinished things. The board offered me the CEO position. I blurted out. Dad closed the album carefully. And, I don't know. After everything that's happened, maybe the company needs fresh blood. Someone without our family baggage. Baggage? Dad chuckled. Sarah, this company isn't its baggage. It's not Michael's mistakes or even your mother's death. It's every building we've created, every family we've housed, every business we've helped grow. He pulled another photo from a box. Mom in her office, pregnant with me, reviewing blueprints. Your mother used to say that buildings are just dreams made solid. The trick is making sure the foundation is strong enough to support those dreams. And you think I'm the right foundation? I think you're the only foundation we've got left. And unlike your brother, you understand that leadership isn't about power. It's about responsibility. My phone buzzed. A text from Jessica. Michael's gone. Don't bother looking for him. You've won. Hope you're happy. Dad read the message over my shoulder and sighed. He ran. Cayman Islands. Probably trying to access whatever money he has left there. Then it's finished, Dad said quietly. He's made his choice. I stared at the photo of Mom, remembering her in that office, how she always made time to explain things to me, to teach me about the business even when I was too young to understand. She'd seen something in me back then, something I was only now beginning to recognize in myself. If I take the position, I said slowly, things will have to change. The old ways of doing business, the lack of oversight that let Michael get away with his fraud, it all has to stop. Dad nodded. Change can be good, necessary even. Some people won't like it. Some people didn't like it when your mother became the first female executive in the company's history, he smiled. She changed things too, made them better. I pulled out my phone and typed a quick message to Henderson. I'll do it. Meeting tomorrow to discuss terms. His response came immediately, 9 a.m. Welcome aboard, CEO Mitchell. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat on my balcony, looking out at the city skyline. So many of those buildings bore the Mitchell Construction logo. Each one represented not just our work, but our legacy, a legacy I was now responsible for protecting. My phone buzzed with an incoming email. The FBI confirming they were working with international authorities to locate Michael. Another buzz. A message from Mrs. Rodriguez with a draft press release announcing my appointment. A third buzz. A text from Dad. Found more photos. Come by tomorrow? Proud of you, honey. I looked again at the city lights, at the buildings stretching toward the stars. Mom had been right. They were dreams made solid. And maybe, just maybe, I was ready to start building some new dreams of my own. Tomorrow would bring challenges, a company to rebuild, trust to restore, changes to implement. But for now, sitting in the quiet night, I felt at peace with my decision. Sometimes, the hardest paths are the ones we're meant to take. The wind carried the distant sound of sirens, of city life, of progress, of change. Somewhere out there, Michael was running from his mistakes. But I was done running. It was time to stand firm, to build something stronger than before. 1 year later, I stood at the podium during Mitchell Construction's annual holiday party, looking out at faces both familiar and new. The company's headquarters lobby had been transformed for the evening, twinkling lights reflecting off the polished marble floors Mom had insisted on installing years ago. As we close up this year, I began my voice carrying through the crowded space. I want to thank each of you for your trust, your dedication, and most importantly, your resilience. The past 12 months have been transformative. We'd implemented new financial oversight systems, promoted deserving employees, and rebuilt our reputation in the industry. The scandal of Michael's fraud had faded, replaced by headlines about our innovative sustainable building projects and community initiatives. Dad sat in the front row, beaming. Next to him was his new friend Clara, a widow he'd met at his garden club. She brought warmth back into his life in ways I hadn't expected, but for which I was deeply grateful. Mitchell Construction isn't just about buildings, I continued. It's about building trust, building communities, and building futures. This year, we've launched our scholarship program for aspiring architects and engineers, dedicated a new wing at the Children's Hospital, and broken ground on our first fully sustainable apartment complex. As I spoke, I noticed movement at the back of the room. A familiar figure slipped in, trying to remain unnoticed. Jessica. She looked different, simpler clothes, no designer handbag, a humbler presence. And none of this would be possible without the foundation laid by those who came before us. I held up my glass. To my mother, whose vision still guides us. To my father, whose integrity never wavered. And to everyone here who chose to be part of our rebuilding. The crowd applauded, and as people began mingling, Jessica made her way toward me. We hadn't spoken since Michael fled. Last I'd heard, their divorce was final, and she'd taken a job as a teacher's assistant. "Sarah," she said softly, "I wasn't sure I should come, but I needed to say something." I waited, keeping my expression neutral. "I'm sorry," she continued, "for everything. For not seeing what Michael was doing, for believing his lies about you, for—" She trailed off, blinking back tears. "Have you heard from him?" I couldn't help asking. She shook her head. "Not since the Caymans. The FBI thinks he's in Dubai now." But she shrugged. "I've moved on. Started over. Actually, that's why I'm here. I've been thinking about what you said at last year's Thanksgiving, about accountability and truth." She reached into her purse and pulled out a USB drive. "These are emails, bank statements, everything I knew about but was too scared to reveal. I know it's too late for prosecution, but maybe it can help prevent something like this from happening again." I took the drive, surprised by her gesture. "Thank you. This means a lot." Dad joined us, Clara at his side. To my amazement, he hugged Jessica. "You look well," he said kindly. "I am," she smiled weakly. "Getting there, anyway." She turned back to me. "The scholarship program, it's what Mom always wanted, isn't it?" The fact that she still called Mom touched something in me. Yes, she believed everyone deserved a chance to build their dreams. Later that night, after the party wound down, Dad and I stood in Mom's old office. We preserved it largely as she'd left it, though now it served as a conference room where we made our most important decisions. "Quite a year," Dad said, straightening one of Mom's framed blueprints. "Think she'd be proud?" "Of the company? Absolutely." He turned to face me. "Of you? Even more so." I sat in Mom's old chair, running my fingers along the desk where she'd worked so many late nights. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if Michael had just come to us when he first got into trouble. If he'd chosen honesty over deception. "We can't change the past," Dad said wisely. "But you've built something better from the ashes. That's what matters." Looking out the office window at the city skyline, at all the buildings bearing our name, I felt a deep sense of peace. Michael's betrayal had nearly destroyed us, but it had also led to something stronger. A company rebuilt on transparency, integrity, and genuine care for its people. "Next year's Thanksgiving," Dad said suddenly, "Clara's offered to host. Says it's time for new traditions." I smiled. New traditions sound perfect. As we left the office, I paused to look at Mom's photo on the wall. She was standing at a construction site, blueprint in hand, smiling at something off camera. Building dreams, just like always. Some foundations crack, I've learned. Some betrayals cut too deep to fully heal. But with enough courage, enough determination, you can always build something new, something stronger. And sometimes that's the greatest victory of all.